Great, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, Larimer County. Today is Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. This is our Administrative Matters meeting. As is our tradition, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us as you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Nice to see everyone. My name is John Kafalis, Commissioner from District 1, joined by my colleagues, Kristen Stevens, Commissioner from District 2, and Jody Shedek McNally from District 3. Got that right? Yes. We are also joined by Heather Arment. Arment, thank you. Arment, of course, from the Clerk and Recorder's Office, who is taking notes and recording. Of course, this is a public meeting. Across the way, we have our County Manager, Lorenda Volker, and two folks from our Commissioner's Office, Tom Clayton and Sarah Martin. Thank you so much for being here. So, first order of business is public comment. No one has signed up on the sign-up sheet. Sarah, did anyone register yesterday? And does anyone wish to offer public comment via the link or the phone?
No, Commissioner.
Okay. Then before we close public comment, we'll give folks another chance. Not tons of folks in the audience, but in case somebody would like to have their moment of fame, this is your opportunity if you'd like to offer public comment. Gosh. All right, then, we will close public comment and we'll move on with our agenda. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes for July 8th, 2024. Let's see, Commissioner Stevens, welcome back. Would you be kind enough to offer that motion, please?
I would, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the minutes for the week of July 8th, 2024.
Thank you. That is a proper motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Next item is the review of next week's commissioner schedule, and we have Sarah for that. Sarah, you're on.
This is the Commissioner's schedule for July 22nd through the 27th. On Monday, July 2nd from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., there will be a work session regarding performance measures for support services in the Commissioner's conference room on the second floor. From 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., there will be a work session with Leslie Ellis, Director of Community Planning, Infrastructure, and Resources in the Commissioner's conference room on the second floor. From 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., there will be land use items with the Development Review Team. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be in the hearing room on the first floor or virtually via Zoom. On Tuesday, July 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., there will be an Administrative Matters meeting in the hearing room on the first floor. From 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m., there will be administrative direction to county management in the Sprague Lake Conference Room on the second floor. From 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., Commissioners Kafalis and Stevens will attend a solid waste update meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be in the Sprague Lake Conference Room on the second floor or virtually via Zoom. From 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., Commissioner Shaddock McNally may attend the Rodeo Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at the First National Bank building at 5280 Arena Circle in Loveland or virtually via Zoom. From 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the Northern Colorado Health Network Open House at 400 Remington Street in Fort Collins. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., Commissioner Stevens will attend the Timnath Town Council meeting at 4750 Signal Tree Drive in Timnath. On Wednesday, July 24th, from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the North Fort Collins Business Association meeting at the Rocky Mountain Innisphere at 320 East Vine Drive in Fort Collins. From 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., Commissioner Stevens will host a mock Administrative Matters community meeting in the hearing room on the first floor. From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Commissioner Shaddock McNally will attend the Colorado Forest Health Council meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at 201 Centennial Street, number 200 in Glenwood Springs, or virtually via Zoom. From 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., there will be a work session with Mark Pfaffinger, Support Services Director, in the Commissioners' Conference Room on the second floor. From 2:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., there will be a work session regarding Fund 105 status update in the Commissioners' Conference Room on the second floor. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may attend the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it'll be in the Poudre River Conference Room at 200 Peridot Avenue in Loveland, or virtually via Zoom. From 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may attend the Fair Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it'll be in the Thomas M. McKee 4-H Youth and Community Building at 5280 Arena Circle in Loveland, or virtually via Zoom. On Thursday, July 25th, from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may participate in the virtual Counties and Commissioners Acting Together County Revenue Authority group meeting. From 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., Commissioner Cavalos will host a community conversation for the Red Feather Lakes community. Guest will be Josh Roberts, Office of Emergency Management Coordinator, who will discuss the Community Wildfire Defense Grant at 58 Firehouse Lane in Red Feather Lakes. From 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., Commissioner Cavalos will attend the Red Feather Lakes Planning Advisory Committee meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it'll be at 44 Firehouse Lane, Red Feather Lakes, or virtually via Zoom. From 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will attend the Regional Opioid Abatement Council meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it'll be at 2260 West Trilby Road in Fort Collins, or virtually via Zoom. From 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., Commissioner Stevens will participate in the Virtual Non-Attainment Area Air Pollution Mitigation Enterprise meeting. From 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., Commissioners may attend a tour of Chimney Hollow at the Department of Natural Resources at 1800 South County Road 31 in Loveland. From 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may attend the Open Lands Advisory Board meeting at the Department of Natural Resources at 1800 South County Road 31 in Loveland. On Friday, July 26th, from 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may participate in the virtual Colorado Forest Health Council Legislative Committee meeting. From 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., Commissioners Cavalos and Shattuck McNally will participate in the virtual potential legislation for Cache La Poudre/rural designation meeting. On Saturday, July 27th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Commissioners will participate in the Larimer County Fair and Rodeo Parade in downtown Loveland. That's it.
Thank you, Sarah. Well done. Colleagues, do you have any questions, comments, observations? Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sarah and team, thanks for always, every week you do such a good job wrangling our schedules. On the Tuesday, July 23rd, I wanted to just note and have that on the schedule. It's a whole, but I will be traveling up to the Forest Health Council and doing some boots on the ground site visits for some of the mitigation work and the Colorado Water Center up there. So I'm not sure. I think I have it on as 12, to whenever, 7 o'clock, but I will try to attend the other ones. I'm still trying to nail down exactly when I'm heading up. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Stevens, anything?
Yeah, I have on Monday, July 22nd, I'm attending the event at the Fort Collins Museum of Discovery. It's a lunchtime event for the opening of a couple exhibits that they have. So,
Is that all?
that's it for me. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have two minor suggestions regarding the tour of Chimney Hollow. Hollow has an O where the A is, and we may want to put in reservoir. After Chimney Hollow Reservoir, that's the construction site. Secondly, regarding the meeting on Friday, July 26th on the Cache La Poudre, I would, for sake of clarification, I would add the word schools after Cache La Poudre. This pertains to the potential rural designation of schools that are located in unincorporated parts of the county.
Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. I believe we can move on.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
when you mentioned about Chimney Hollow, I don't know if we're doing the reservoir. I think we're touring the open space on the other side. And
Oh, really?
yeah, so it's the Chimney Hollow open space area, and it's
Thank you.
we're touring
Okay.
that. So I want to make sure, because we're not actually touring the
Construction site?
construction site. We're going to the open space.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Duly noted. And of course, hollow is still spelled with an O. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see, consent agenda. Let's move on. So, as folks know by now, most folks know by now, the consent agenda is meant for items that are fairly routine, administrative in nature, not a whole lot of discussion. The commissioners have the option of pulling an item off of the consent agenda, which occasionally happens, or sometimes will offer a few clarifying comments. So with that said, I will go through the consent agenda, and as I generally state, I will not be going through it in the greatest amount of detail, and I think that'll make folks happy. So the first category under consent agenda for July 16, 2024 has to do with agreements. The first agreement is an Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Act at Horsetooth and Carter Lake in Colorado. There's an agreement there, and this has to do with a grant that the county received in 2020 from the Bureau of Reclamation for aquatic nuisance species prevention at both Horsetooth Reservoir and Carter Lake. There have been some unforeseen delays with the project. This is a request for an extension of the project, and that's what this particular agreement is about. The terms are September 17th, 2020 through December 31st, 2024. The dollar amount involved is $110,000. The second agreement is the 2024 Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program, the COSWAP. This is a workforce development grant, Windy Gap. Request approval of a contract with the Colorado Youth Corps and the Economic Workforce Development Department for fire mitigation. This is intended to protect communities, firefighters, and critical water supplies by mitigating potential extreme wildfire behavior. And this is on land close to the Magic Feather prescribed burn areas and so forth. The term of this agreement is May 9th, 2024 through December 31st, 2025 between the Youth Corps Association, Economic Workforce Development. The dollar amount is approximately $236,000 rounded off. Next agreement amendment number 1, Crystal Lakes Road Association, hazard mitigation grant, revised, submitted by our Office of Emergency Management. This amendment incorporates Phase 2 of the Crystal Lakes Road Association hazard mitigation grant for hazard mitigation work up there at Crystal Lakes. This is a pass-through grant with all matching funds being paid by the association. The term is upon signature through the termination of the contract between the county and the state of Colorado. The dollar amount rounded off is approximately $894,000. So 3 agreements. Next, we move on to appointments. Recommended full-term appointments to the Parks Advisory Board. 2 folks, Jeannie Mounts and Joe Bakel, I believe. Appoint them to full-term appointments to the Parks Advisory Board beginning today, ending June 30th, 2027. The next appointment is a rescind appointment to the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Board. This is an individual, Jackson Maynor, will be will be removed from that board, the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Moving on to liquor licenses. Let's see, we have 2 liquor license renewal. This is a 7-Eleven store in Fort Collins, license type fermented malt beverage in wine off-premise, approval and issuance. The second is a liquor license renewal. The Colorado Cherry Company. This is up in Lyons. This is a beer and wine license type approval and issuance. Next category is miscellaneous. And under miscellaneous, yes, we have a legislative proposal that we have submitted to the CCI, Colorado Counties Inc. legislative process. This relates to concealed carry for non-post certified deputies. And again, the details of all this are in our consent agenda packet. So there's that particular legislative proposal. We'll be discussing that. We already have discussed that, and we'll get an update. The next items, there are a variety of stipulations. I believe they all pertain to tax year 2023, and there are 7 of those, I think, tax year 2023. And once again, a stipulation is an agreement between the property owner and the assessor's office, and it's an agreement on an adjusted value of the property. I'm getting a slight nod from one of our deputy county attorney, so I must be doing okay there. Thank you, sir. Next, we have this is required the treasurer 6-month report submitted by our county treasurer, Irene Josie, and this is for the period of January 1st of this year through June 30th of this year, and our requirement is to publish it in local newspapers, and it shows all the accounts that the county treasurer is managing, the beginning balances and the ending balances. So if you're interested in that information, you can find it in the packet, and it is to be will be published or has been published in a local newspaper as required by state statute. Almost there, folks. Resolutions. A resolution establishing compensation for District Attorney Investigator 1. That's that. Bear with me. District Attorney 1, there's more information, of course. Effective July 22nd of this year, fill a vacant District Attorney Investigator 1 position. The biweekly salary for this position is approximately $3,000. The second resolution accepting a quit claim deed, to accept a quit claim deed from the United States Department of Interior, Bureau of Reclamation, to Larimer County for a portion of Mary's Lake Road from 1954. That was a good year. Shall I state that was the year I was born? That's it. Okay. Let's see. Do either of my colleagues wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Then let's see. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, please offer the motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda for July 16th, 2024.
Proper motion. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. We now move on to commissioners' guests. There's nothing listed on the agenda, but indeed we do have some commissioners' guests. I will now turn it over to Commissioner Shattuck McNally and to kind of cue this up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, colleagues, for welcoming it's actually our guests because this is a regional, Region 2. We are Region 2 for the Regional Opioid Abatement Council, which is one of 17, looking at David, 17 regions throughout the state, for the state of Colorado that are designated and part of the opioid abatement settlement that everyone has seen from the pharmaceutical companies, the abatement money. And the Colorado Attorney General's office oversees the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council, and they have designated the 17 regions, and we are Region 2. And we have 5 elected bodies, 2 electeds on there from the Health Department, the Commissioner's Office, the Town of Estes Park, Town of Wellington, Town of Fort Collins, and Town of Loveland. And we have representatives that lived experience. We have 3 lived experience members that are advising. They're not elected voting members, but they're advisory. And then we have another dozen or so advisory folks on that council. It's a very robust council. We've been very busy over the last couple of years. Also, Larimer County is a fiscal agent, so we have a lot of staff, including David Arode and others. Carol Block has been phenomenal and a very big advocate and strong staff member supporting the council. We have also lived Tyler, I think, sorry, Liv, I'm blanking. I went to look at you, my brain went blank. Liv and John, all of them have been supporting us with the financials and the grant management, the minutes. There's lots of support from Larimer County for this Regional Opioid Abatement Council, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done as a regional council. I'm the vice chair of that council, and we have Tom Gonzalez from our public health director, who is the chair. And so we have an annual report, our first report from this, and we wanted to kind of share that with you today. I think I've emailed it to you earlier in the end of July or June, I believe. And so I've invited people from the council and from some of our staff, and the public health director is the chair of the Regional Abatement Council, to kind of give an update and share with the public, but also just some of the great work we're doing, because we really, we're getting some national and statewide observation and some accolades, and so I wanted to just share this with the public and share with you also. You have an update, and welcome Director Gonzalez, and thank you for your service on this council. It's really been a pleasure to work with you.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Commissioner and Board of Commissioners and County Manager Volker. Tom Gonzalez, Public Health Director, and I also serve as the chair for the Regional Opioid Abatement Council. As Commissioner shared, there's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around a very difficult, tragic situation, an epidemic that we're dealing with in the United States, and that's the dealing with opioids. If we can go to the next slide. It was a few years ago, if you all recall, there was abatement dollars that came down from the settlement funds with the opioid around the country. The Department of Law, or the AG's office, created the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council in an agreement with local governments to provide oversight of the opioid funds to ensure the distribution of these funds complies with the terms of the settlement. So we wanted to make sure that these funds are going directly to services to combat this epidemic and not gap fill budgets for counties and local governments, etc. So the state activated what they call the Regional Opioid Abatement Councils, which there are 19 of them, and we are Region 2. And over the next 17 years, we are being asked to have oversight and allocate funds in our community the best way we see fit to combat this epidemic. Our next slide shows there's 3 overall groups in our member structure that was put together here in Region 2. Our voting members, you see them on the board. There's 6 of them. Commissioner read them out, but myself representing the Board of Health, Commissioner Shattuck McNally is the Vice Chair representing Larimer County. We have Beth Yontz over at the City of Fort Collins. She represents the Social Sustainability Group. Councilor Black with Loveland, Trustee Mason with the Town of Wellington, and Trustee Youngland, Town of Estes Park. What a fantastic group we work with, but that's the voting members. Now there's a lot of other influence and expertise in this very complex, challenging issue. So we have technical advisory members, and that includes our behavioral health services. We have Jessica and Laura Walker in the room. They're involved as well, and we appreciate the representation. We do have 3 lived experience. Nothing more valuable than hearing from lived experience and the challenges, the barriers, the obstacles to seeking treatment and recovery ultimately. CJAC's on there, as well as the Chief Judge of the 8th Judicial District. Also, subject matter experts, so important. And we have quite a few folks there, ranging from the DA to the Public Defender's Office, our school districts, behavioral health providers, healthcare providers, emergency folks, etc. So, as you can see, it is a sundry of folks that we have got put together to help make sure these funds are being allocated in a very data-driven manner. Next slide. So approved funding areas, the $5.5 million in our first 2 years. Now, this is over 17 years, and the funds were kind of front loaded. So we're seeing the majority of the funds in the first few years. So it's not going to be $5.5 million every 2 years. It'll be less, but nonetheless, that was our first 2 years. And we really worked in the buckets of prevention, harm reduction, treatment, criminal justice, recovery, supportive housing, and administrative. When we talk about administrative, so important with any kind of organization, you have folks behind the scenes doing the ultimate work. Carol Block, our finance director for the county, is the financial representative for the ROAC and doing a fantastic job, as Carol does. David Arode, our deputy county manager, is the legal representative for the ROAC, and he's awesome as always. Dr. Jared Olson, our senior population epidemiologist with the health department, is doing all the data analysts, and co-leading our data epi group. John Voss, our county manager with the health department, is taking care of all the grants and contracts. And then Liv Crows, she's with the health department doing all the administrative assistant. I also want to give a shout out to Caitlin Lovett. She was the administrative assistant the first year and a half. So it's been all hands on deck and a team effort to get these funds out in the appropriate manner. Our next slide now, you'll see the portfolio of the $5.5 million and how the ROAC worked to fund those buckets, we say. And what I'm proud of is the ROAC really intentionally from the very beginning, looking at data, said, where can we put the money to get the biggest impact? We don't lose lives to overdose. We get people in recovery and treatment. We prevent it. So you'll see prevention 15%, harm reduction around 10, supportive housing 11, and that housing keeps popping up. But most of the services we're seeing from our grantees, 50% of the folks receiving service are unhoused in some fashion, whether they're people experiencing homelessness or they're couch surfing. So that's a big issue. Our co-responder diversion program, that's significantly increased, and we've been able to get more mental health, behavioral health specialists lined up with law enforcement working together in these situations, diverting people from going to the jail and getting them the help they need. Social connections, we all know that the sense of belonging and connection is so big in prevention as well as recovery. Education, care coordination, and then that little sliver at the top is data and evaluation. We want to make sure that we're being effective. But you'll see that pretty proud of where this money has gone to the actual activities to prevent or to curb this epidemic. And our last slide, just the organizations that have been funded over the first 2 years. And you'll see we're lucky here in Larimer County. We have the infrastructure. We have organizations already in place doing this great work. What we are doing in the ROAC is gap filling. Areas maybe in the county that we're not getting that service, such as Loveliness to Spark Birth, that we've now got services there. Or maybe there was a gap from the jail to release to when they're back. We've got that filled. Co-responder filling that. A big one, prevention in our 3 school districts working with CSU's research and prevention program, preventing opioid substance use abuse. So lots of work there, and I really appreciate all of our partners. I appreciate all of the members of the ROAC and the staff, because without them, we can't do this. And again, we have about 15 more years left of this money rolling in to do this great work to curb the epidemic. So with that, I again thank you, Commissioner, for having us here today.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Commissioner Shattuck McNally. Commissioner Stevens, we'll start with you. Do you have any questions, comments, observations?
I do. Well, thank you for the work, and thank you, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, for the work you're doing on this. So important. And we know it is an epidemic in our country. Can you remind me how a little bit more about the money? You said we have 15 more years of funding. Was a lot of that front loaded? So does it become fewer dollars later? Are there still outstanding settlements yet to happen with some of these pharmaceutical companies that might bring in more dollars? What does that piece look like?
That's a great question, and David's got most of the answers to that question. So, David?
And Commissioner Stevens, if I may add on to that really quick. I think it's relevant. So if you could also comment, wasn't there some recent developments, a settlement with one of the, and how that might influence anything here?
Certainly.
Thank you kindly, sir.
Good morning, David Aero, Deputy County Attorney. In regards to your specific questions, yes, the intent was to front load. That was mainly driven by the settlements with those entities that settled. Their desire was to pay more money up front, and it would dissipate over time. So most of the funds for the regional, for the state and all the states were front loaded. And then for Colorado, that money went to the regions. And so it was also front loaded. So over time, as is, it will slowly diminish, but there will still be funding that comes in over that entire period. For a number of there's been some high-profile litigation and settlements. Most notably, the Supreme Court overturned a bankruptcy settlement with the Sackler family and their company. That was one of the larger ones. That money was not part of the money that's gone to the states and then to the regional councils. So over time, once we can sort of reestablish how is that going to resolve, that money will then come in. So you may see some ebbs and flows or some spikes as some of those settlements come in. Larimer County is part of the local coalition that sort of started it for the state of Colorado. We are adding some defendants now that we've done some more analysis. There are some other companies. So there's potentially some other settlements that will come in the future. So yes, overall, it will diminish, but as some of these other settlements come on, we may see some spikes jump up.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Can I have one more question? So knowing kind of that there's 15 years of funding and some years might not be as high as others, are you thinking about ways to, how do you operationalize some of these, programs, and how they can, I always hate to continually rely on soft funding that might go away, and especially with such an epidemic. Do you change your focus? Do you have any ideas about what that looks like in future years?
Commissioner, thank you for that question. That's a great question. And what I'm so proud of the ROAC from the very beginning, day one, under David's legal guidance, we brought that up with all the grantees, that this money is not here forever and that it's going to diminish. And so we need to look at how do we make this sustainable. For example, one right off the top of my head is with Colorado State University in our 3 school districts. The first year was a little bit more on the money because they had to do an analysis and see what the school districts were doing and not doing, where they need the help. So that the next year went down a little bit as we're training our educators and our families and our youth. And it's expected the following years to go less and less to where it's actually operationalized within the 3 school districts. So from the very beginning, we knew that there wouldn't be that funding forever. And the 3 school districts signed on saying, yeah, we understand that. Similar with the co-responder program, similar with some of the other programs, the thought process, let's get it up and running. Let's figure out how we can operationalize this. So I'm hopeful that we can continue, because everything we're doing is really, I think it's just elevated our efforts in opioid reduction. And I think the biggest one we still got to continue to do, and we know we're all working on, is stigma reduction. This is a mental health issue. It is like any other diseases, so we got to treat it that way, and we've got to work as a community. And I think we're doing that, but to continue that fight against the stigma around it.
Well, and I think a lot of stigma around harm reduction too, and
Absolutely.
those kind of proven kind of practices that are at least, this is not a world that we're working in with perfects. It's, it's keeping people alive and healthy till they can get, to a space where they can get better. So thank you. Thanks for the work. I appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thanks, Commissioner. I have a question, and certainly appreciate all the good work that's been done. Certainly our deputy county attorney deserves an awful lot of credit. He's been in the trenches on this in the last number of years. helping to participate in the legal discussions and briefings and all the rest. So thank you to our county attorney's office. My question is this. Looking at the list of recipients of the Opioid Abatement Council dollars, and also having received some input from the community, it seems like community-based groups that might benefit from some of those dollars, they don't have there's not the greatest transparency information for them to be aware of when those dollars might be available and how they might apply. I got the impression, and I maybe misunderstood, that it's a lot of the outreach goes to those organizations that have received sales tax initiative, behavioral health services impact grant funds. So I wonder, Tom, if you or someone could comment, do I have an accurate understanding? Is that something we could improve upon if it is accurate? Thank you.
Well, transparency is always the key for us, and we make sure that we got everything posted, not only legally, but so the community understands what the ROIC's about. And that's why we're here today, too, to get the information out. We had a very good conversation early on around competitive versus targeted dollars. You got to understand the ROAC is a group. It's not really an entity. So we don't really have staff. We're kind of pulling from my staff and county staff to help out. And I appreciate them doing other duties as assigned. But if we started doing RFAs and competitive, we would have to probably be spending money on hiring people to help us administer that rather than go targeted. So the conversation with the council was, should we go targeted, very competitive? And where that lied was, well, we already have a process through the behavioral health services. Let's utilize that. But certainly, if we have organizations that work within those funding buckets of that we just showed, absolutely want to hear from them. But that's really the heart of it, is basically the administrative piece of that. And I don't know, Commissioner, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I would like to add, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. So remember that we do things differently in Colorado and the rest of the nation. A lot of the parts of the nation received these settlements, and those states decided to give it to local agencies who just put them into their general funds. Colorado, I think one other state it doesn't come to mind, and chose to do this in a regional way and to give it to local governments and have these councils to really put boots on the ground and to get money out the door. I am very proud of the work that we've done here in Larimer County. There are several counties that are spend a lot of time doing assessments and paid for consultants, and then did this RFP and still have not sent out any dollars of the last two cycles. And that's not to be critical, it's just that's what they chose to do. And we had a deliberate focus on getting money out the door because we needed to save lives, because we're in the middle of a crisis and epidemic. We remember also that we have so many partnerships on this that are outside the behavioral health world, and we have these lived experience folks who have connections outside of that as well, who are talking with folks in recovery to get that feedback. So I feel like we have a fairly wide net, and we have been talking to new groups and other groups who are not, maybe not, the word's getting out, but we also, we just felt the targeted response helped us get the money out. And, Johns Hopkins and other national organizations have been complimenting Colorado, and even looking, I think the AG gave a big shout out to the Larimer County just last week regarding our response and how we have been really trying to act and get this money into those who are impacted in those families, and to be as preventative, especially with our youth, because this is also connected with the fentanyl crisis, and we want to save lives. So thank you for letting me add on to that.
So thank you. I appreciate the additional details and commentary, and I appreciate the point regarding competitive versus targeted grants and what that might, how that might add to administrative burden, and certainly don't want to add to government if we don't have to add to government. That said, though, all I'm doing is sharing with you input that I received from the community, and I would ask that you give some thought to, are there other ways of, making sure that other community-based organizations, could at least be aware. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know how big of a problem it is, and I get what you just said. So I just, that's all I'm asking is,
Sure.
and I'm just sharing, and you all can figure it out. And then I guess the last comment or question, and then we'll see if our county manager has anything if she'd like to add. And that is, so what, I always ask this, what is the evaluation process to determine that this investment in the community is actually saving lives or benefiting folks, as best as we can discern that?
Perfect question. I'm going to bring up Dr. Gerald.
Oh, I'm glad I had a perfect question. That's awesome.
That's a great
Oh,
question.
and we have our esteemed population, I always like to say this word and pronounce it properly, epidemiologist.
There you go. Thank you very much. My name is Jared Olson. I'm the Senior Population Epidemiologist for the Health Department. And to respond to your question, we don't have perfect data on this, right? We always know, especially with activities that are illicit or potentially have legal consequences, that collecting data is going to be a challenge. However, we work closely with our coroner's office, so we know that we're paying attention to the continual burden with the epidemic, and we are seeing a decline in the number of deaths where the individual had fentanyl or another high potency synthetic opioid in their system at the time of death. That is a trend that is the opposite of Colorado as a state.
That's great. Well, Jared, thank you. That's very helpful. And I'm also aware from our community health dashboard and other sources from the Behavioral Health Services site that we have seen a dip in the suicide rate, and some of that is, I think, correlated with the use of opioids and fentanyl and things like that. So that I believe that answers my question. I guess I would ask in a future update, maybe we could provide some of those numbers and have a conversation about that.
Absolutely.
And also, finally, and thank you for engaging me, sir. I will be visiting the Colorado Health Network, whatever it's called now, the Northern Colorado Health Alliance,
Yep.
Next week or whenever it is. And so it'll be a good opportunity to see on the ground what folks are doing with some of those dollars.
Yeah,
Thank you, Doctor.
On one other piece in there, we are looking at other resources and services such as syndromic surveillance in our emergency department, as well as insurance claims. And we do see some features of the work that has been happening prior to the ROAC dollars, as well as with the ROAC dollars, which is the increase in the accessibility and the use of medication-assisted treatment and other harm reduction and treatment opportunities.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jared. Yes, Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
I'd like to address your question, Mr. Chair, and the ROAC, when we say direct funding, this comes with a 6-month report and a year report where we have metrics, and these are reports where we do a check-in at 6 months for the progress, and we evaluate that, and then at the end of the first cycle, we have received extremely detailed numbers and very robust reports after the year of the grant funding, and we're in that cycle now. We're getting the 6 months for the second tranche, and so this is very data-driven. They are not just getting funds without having accountability measures, and all this data is also being collected by the Colorado Opiate Abatement Council, and we're participating, and I'm on that subcommittee for the statewide dashboard, and then I'm working with Dr. Jared Olson with the data from the Opiate Abatement Council, because we have a subcommittee that was, and now we're joined with the Epidemiology group and also behavioral health. We're trying to get all this data into one spot so that we can use it and break down all the silos to evaluate this, and also we're getting some data from some of the school districts. So it is not without scrutiny, metrics, data, and you should see these reports. They are very impressive to the council, and they're I don't know, that one page was like 20 pages at least long, and so this is, I just want to be very clear to you as our Board of County Commissioners and to the public that this money and what we're using, we're trying to be very thoughtful, good stewards, and there is a lot of information, data, and reports that we require of these grantees. So they're working very hard as well, trying to save lives, that they're being accountable for this money for the public.
Thank you. I appreciate that additional information. Once again, I suppose all I'm asking is that, and I had no doubts that we're doing the best we can to be good stewards of the resources and that we're investing, that there's accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just some...
Yeah, no, that's okay, Jared. I'm just asking that next time if we have another conversation like this in this public setting,
Yes.
I don't have time to read a 20, 30-page report, but some semblance of information for the public for us to better understand. That's all. But you guys are all doing great work. Thank you to the council. Thank you to you, Sarah, and your department. And that's all I got. Lorinda, anything you want to add?
I think I'll just say this kind of looks like a county show here. We had our public health director who serves as the chair of the ROAC, but it is a regional effort. And so we're not the only ones reviewing and making these decisions. Other communities are involved in weighing in on what's important for their community so that there's a true regional approach. We did raise our hand and say we would be the fiscal agent, which is why we have our finance team involved and our attorney involved. But this really is a regional effort that we are happy to be a part of and to support. It fits our values, and it definitely coordinates with what we're doing in behavioral health. So I just want to point that out again to anyone who may be listening. This is not a county department or a county service. It truly is a community effort.
Yeah, thank you, Lorinda, and thank you for reminding us that this is a collaborative regional effort, involves various municipalities. We saw the list of those participants. Thank you so much. Unless there's something else, I think we can probably move on. Anything else, Commissioner?
I just want to thank Dr. Gerald Olson, Liv, Jessica, Director Gonzalez, David, all the entire council. It has really been an honor to work with this. I feel like we are making a difference and saving lives. And I just have to say one other thing is when Commissioner Stevens' question about building sustainability, when we gave out to that first tranche, it was 100%. They knew the next year, because we didn't want to just do one and done. And so they're a step down approach. So those groups have now, we're not just cutting them off, they're kind of having a glide path down. And then I just want to emphasize, because you both are really concerned about housing, that we gave housing vouchers, and some of the work we did focused on opening a woman's focused sober living opportunity in Loveland. And so I just wanted to share that with you because I feel like this is good work and aligns with a lot of our strategic plan, especially with social connections. And a lot of this work we have focused and specifically said in some of the contracts that we wanted it to get outside of Fort Collins and into Loveland and other areas. And I just want to focus that on you. For you, and also remind you that we have the Colorado Attorney General and the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council Conference coming September 30th to the ranch, into the Embassy Suites, into Loveland. And it's a great opportunity, Commissioner Kafalis and Commissioner Stevens, if you'd like to learn more and ask these questions, because a lot of the folks who will have gotten these grants will be there, and that you can go up and ask and talk to them, and you'll see the wide network and of groups across the region, even between Weld County and Larimer County. And I hope that they're rethinking addictions the next day, and I'm hoping that you might look to join, especially talking to some of the peer support folks. They're pretty inspirational and phenomenal, and I wanted to share that. Thank you all for the work. It's really been an honor to work alongside you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks for the reminder about that event in September, and I presume we'll be notified accordingly so that we have the opportunity to attend all or part of that conference, that one-day event or whatever it is. So thank you all. Good discussion, important work, good work, and excellent work. We now move on to, we have two discussion items. The first one is regarding the Adlin Transportation Behavioral Health Secure Transportation License and Vehicle Permit. Looks like we have Laura Walker, and I don't know if Ryan is here as well, but Laura will present it. Good morning, Laura Walker. Hi.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Laura Walker. I serve as the Human and Economic Health Director for the county. And I am thrilled to say that as of yesterday, I am no longer the interim Behavioral Health Services Director because Amy Martonis began her tenure yesterday. And so wanted to make sure that she was here to see how we do some of this work in conjunction with the board. And just really thrilled to have her as part of the team now. So as the Commissioner mentioned, this is an application for a license and permit for Adlin Transportation, which is actually already operating in about 8 other counties in the state, mostly in the Metro Denver area. But they would want to include Larimer County as part of their service area, and so they've brought this request to us. I do give a lot of credit to Ryan Barstow and also our county attorney's office. These folks came up with a very robust and complete, thorough process for how entities would come forward and ask for these licenses and permits. That we were one of the first in the state to have a really solid and well-vetted process for this since the legislation only had us beginning this work in 2022. So it's still a very new program for us to provide behavioral health secure transportation to people in our community that need to get to those services. And we didn't want to have them always need to take an ambulance or law enforcement transportation for the purpose of both stigma and high cost of transporting in those other ways that we had done in the past. So the request here is for a Class B license, and that is the authority to provide the service. And this Class B indicates that there would be no restraints of any kind, either in the vehicle or physical restraints of a driver trying to assist maybe a patient or client that is escalated. So it is the lower level of intervention in that regard. And then the permit is for the vehicle, and that is for a non-partitioned vehicle. So again, it kind of stays in line with that little lower level of intensity of the service by not having the restraints piece and not having a partition in the vehicle. And so we have vetted all of the materials that were submitted as part of the application, and Ryan, as our staff expert, is recommending approval.
Thank you, Laura, and please express our gratitude to Ryan for his work on this. Colleagues, do you have any questions, comments, observations?
Thank you, Laura, and I appreciate this. As you know, I drive by the Longview every day, at least twice a day, and I actually saw yesterday a couple of secure transport that we had approved already driving away. So I know it's great to see that happening, and I just also want to say this as well. I know a lot of people have concerns about how people get there, but usually when people are in crisis, they're not going to take the bus, and this is really a great option to get folks there. And then we have options and ways to get people when they're stabilized, and we have helped them to get to warm handoffs or to places of transitional care, I guess would be the best thing to say. So I just wanted to note that and just say it's great to see things happening in real time as we've done and improved. And I appreciate you pointing out this is really brand new, but it's great to see it work, in action. So thank you. And thank Ryan again, because this has really been well done.
Well, he would have been here this morning, but he had a child care issue, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens, anything you would like to add?
Just a question or two. So you said that they're operating currently in the Denver metro area and have been for how long, I guess, since this program?
Just since earlier this year.
Okay.
It was earlier in 2024. Okay. I don't know the exact dates that they got their licensure from the other counties, but they have been already doing the transportation in many of these.
Yeah, and can you remind me, I know they have the make of the car like here, which are there anything that the car has to have to be licensed? Like, because we're licensing both the vehicle and the company.
Correct.
And is there because there's no restraints, are there anything that they have to have in the car?
I don't believe there's anything special as far as equipment.
Okay.
It's just it takes that mechanical assessment that has to be done by a professional, and then that gets a certified copy comes to us that the vehicle is sound, and safe. But I don't remember all the criteria that are on that sheet. But they take it to a mechanics who does the certification of that.
Perfect. Okay. As Commissioner Shattuck McNally said, I think it's good to have other options for this service in our community, and I mean, there isn't a bus service that goes to that facility, and people in crisis might not want to take one anyway. And so I just think it's good for our community to have options, and it's nice to have this kind of low-level option that might be a little bit more, people might be a little bit more comfortable with. So I know that sometimes people would require restraints, but I mean, hopefully, there's a lot of people that would not. And so I'm happy to see this come forward, and we'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Just a quick question. I think it's been answered, but this secure transportation for folks dealing with behavioral health, it's not in a crisis situation, correct? People in a crisis.
I mean, it could be.
It could.
I mean, it's going to be more for people who enter one door within the behavioral health system, and a determination is made either initially when they walk through that door, or maybe after they've had some kind of initial assessment with that provider. It's to get them to the next level of care, or the next, whether that's a step up or a step down. So, people could be having an active crisis during that whole time, but it's also designed for, like I said, moving people to different levels within the system as well.
Thank you, Laura. Any further discussion, Lorenda?
I guess just one point of clarification. This licensure is important for reimbursement through Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance programs. So there are many other ways people get to facilities. They can call an Uber, they can call a friend. Churches often will do these sort of rides. This really is about that reimbursement, and that's what this law is designed to do, is to encourage people to get licensed so there is a safe vehicle, so there is some check along the way, but it is not the only way people access those services.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion, colleagues? If not, then I believe it's, and thank you once again, Laura. I believe it's Commissioner Stevens. I think it's your turn. If you would be kind enough to offer the motion that we have before us.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the behavioral health secure transportation license and one vehicle permit for Adlin Transportation.
Great, that's a proper motion. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Good work, well done. The next discussion item is to get an update from our emergency services folks regarding the current fire danger conditions in Larimer County. And we welcome our colleagues. Hello, Justin. Thanks, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners and County Manager. Justin Weitzel, the Emergency Services Director for the Sheriff's Office. So I just wanted to come before you and give you a fire danger update and kind of the conditions. I know there's probably some folks that have reached out to all of you asking questions about fire restrictions, so I wanted to come here and do that. And then I apologize for not having anything to present. I can't get it submitted the Thursday before because I want to have the latest, most current information. That's why I always bring a packet to you instead of preparing it the week before. But we'll just go through the packet I provided showing some of the metrics that we look at and data that we look at. So the first one is the fire danger indices that we use to determine. So some of the things there are the dead fuel moistures, the average 1,000 hour dead fuel moistures, and then the average energy release component, which is a combined live and dead fuel moistures that we look at. As you can see, the color coding is representative. Green is obviously outside of restrictions conditions. Yellow is we're just getting into it, and then red is ban criteria. So I didn't update the weather trend, so that's my fault. I'll get into the weather here in a little bit, but that probably should be a 3 instead of a 4. I missed that. I got in at 2 o'clock this morning. I apologize for not being on top of my game. So some of those, majority of the indices that we look at are not within recommending restrictions. So if there's any questions about any of this as we go through it, I'd be happy to answer it. Page 2 is the current drought conditions that we see here in Larimer County and across the state. Obviously, Larimer County probably has the most drought exposure anywhere in the state, and that continues to gain in severity as we go through without a lot of moisture. Fortunately, we've had a couple days of rain. As you can see on the next page, the 7-day rainfall for the last week, and these are the rain gauges that we have around the county, and just showing the tenths or hundredths of an inch of rain. But we've gotten a little bit of rain throughout the majority of the county. Obviously, we don't have rain gauges everywhere, but everywhere we do have a rain gauge. Looks like we've had at least a little bit of precipitation, which has been good, especially the last couple of days with the thunderstorms that we've had come through. If you turn to the next page, it's the 30-day temperature outlook. Obviously, it depends on what we're looking at, but the National Weather Service and NOAA don't see any relief insight in the next 30 days. And this was done in the end of June, so this is really for the month of July. So if you turn to the next page, it's the 60-day temperature outlook through August and September. With a little bit of change, obviously fall, getting closer to fall, we'll see a little bit of recovery from the high temperatures, hopefully. And then the next couple pages are the precipitation outlook as well. So the 30-day precipitation outlook, as we've seen, we've had a little bit of thunderstorms with a little bit of precip, but not a ton. And then the 60-day look is nothing of significance in the next few days. So no relief really seen on there. I did forget to put in the weather for the next 7 to 14 days, but looking at the weather for the next week, both below 6,000 feet and above 6,000 feet elevation, up to and even above 9,000 feet is kind of how we break it out when we look at fire weather. But for all the elevations, we're supposed to have thunderstorms across the county that should be wet. And I'll get into that a little bit more here in a second, but the next page is a 7-day significant fire outlook. And as you can see on there, I know it's small on there, but if you, the brown is moderate risk, and the yellow is low risk, and the green is no risk, and obviously the red is where we start getting into high risk. There is moderate risk out in the plains towards Wellington and kind of the low-lying areas above 6,000 feet. It's low risk up there, so nothing significant fire behavior. And again, these are all predictions. We're not saying that we know when fires are going to happen or if we get them, what that looks like, but the outlook isn't for any significant fires based on the field conditions and the weather. The next one, like I said, if you look at that and can read the bottom of that, the monsoonal moisture, we're supposed to get a little bit more moisture in the next week or two. So basically the beginning this week and next week, the thunderstorms we do get should have a little bit more moisture in them, which will help with conditions a little bit. We did see from the last couple rainstorms, the indices go down a little bit from higher fire danger, just with that little bit of moisture. So it'll keep it kind of even for a little bit. And then the last page is the other counties that are in fire restrictions. Boulder County and then Gilpin and Clear Creek are all in restrictions, and then the ones out to the east and south of us, kind of the Boulder, Arapahoe, Douglas, Elbert. Some of those counties are in fire restrictions, but none other than Boulder that are surrounding Larimer County, including into Wyoming. Obviously, the U.S. Forest Service is in fire restrictions as well in Larimer County and Boulder County. So, and then into Gilpin and Clear Creek, they cover a little bit bigger area, and they even extend out into Pawnee National Grasslands with the Forest Service restrictions when they go in. So, they cover a pretty broad area. I can either take questions or I can give you the recommendation from the sheriff's office, however you want to do that.
Thank you, Justin. And also, I see some of your colleagues are here. I'm not sure if they want to add anything or they just have your back there a little bit. But I think we're good. So let's open it up to see if there are any questions or comments and then any recommendations. Commissioner Stevens, please.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Appreciate your the detailed, documents that you have here, because I think it really gives us a really full picture of what's happening in our county. One of the questions is, what's different in Boulder County that they're fairly close and they're probably seeing very similar conditions. Is it just kind of a judgment call, do you think, or is there something more significant that's happening there?
There is a judgment call more in Boulder County and they look with the population and just how much more condensed it is or dense population it is. They're looking at that, and the Forest Service and the Boulder County typically go in at the same time, where if you look at state statutes, it says we have to have competent evidence to go in, and so we really try and look at the metrics. Not that Boulder doesn't, but they also have a political component to their restriction criteria, which we don't typically use in ours. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so you think that because U.S. Forest Service went in, that they almost always would when that metric is hit?
Yeah, that, and also the Forest Service in Boulder County really wanted to go into restrictions before the 4th of July. And so we weren't looking at the 4th. That was kind of their political piece to their consideration, was the 4th of July, which we weren't there during the 4th of July in Larimer County to consider restrictions.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thanks for the explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Justin always brings such great information, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness or intention to bring the latest outlook. We just got out of a pretty big heat wave and dry conditions, and certainly I was driving through Gilpin, Boulder County and stuff, higher elevations, trying to find somewhere cool, but just seeing all the fire bans in other counties and stuff was interesting. And so watching the fire in Boulder County on Friday, I think it seems like a long time ago, but that was a little scary, and with the winds and things. So this weekend certainly changed conditions, because a lot of the wonderful green things that we've been enjoying, all this wonderful green growth the last couple weeks, that's fuel now, and it's dried out. So I'm wondering how this weekend is, maybe that's part of your recommendation. So that's my first question. How does this weekend really change the conditions? And then secondly, we have a lot of technology changes, and I don't know how does that help us with modeling and all these things? And how do we take it? We have such a varied county, and so some corners are going to see more moisture than other corners, and so I don't know how we use all of that to really make a recommendation, because maybe one part, I've asked this every year, maybe one part of the county is really drier than the other parts, and so when we do a county-wide, how does that really, do we need to have a targeted area? And I always ask this question, but I've driven some areas that are I'm just waiting for someone to throw a cigarette or something, and I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, no, those are both great questions. So if I remember, can you remind me of the first one, just so I make sure I get it right?
This last weekend. It's over 100 degrees. Everything's, anything below, I'll just say 10,000 feet is dried out. So, you can see it as you drive down. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, and I've driven through Boulder and Gilpin and some of those southern counties, and they're definitely a little bit drier than we are here in Larimer County, especially up above 9,000 feet. We had a little bit more moisture later in the year than maybe they did. But yes, the 100-degree weather that we had over the weekend definitely pushed the needle towards recommending restrictions, and that's why I had scheduled this meeting, knowing that it would impact the fire danger. So yes, it definitely did have a significant impact to the fire danger, and we saw the needle get pushed pretty far with those conditions. The Sheriff's Office did bring on extra firefighters throughout the weekend to make sure that if something did happen, that we did have people available. So we continue to monitor conditions and make sure that we're staffed up on those days when we expect a higher fire danger. The second part of your question was, I was trying to remember it now.
Using AI, and then that's kind of going into that, to that third question was just targeted areas. I know I ask this question every year, but I want the public also to hear this, because in certain parts of the county they have seen a lot more moisture, but there's maybe the southeast corner, which is seeing pretty much all the grass is brown. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, no, that's great. First, I'll address the AI. That's something I'm working on with some companies that specialize in that, and I definitely do not have expertise in AI or computer programming, so I've been struggling trying to figure that out. So I've enlisted some companies that have that expertise, and I'm looking at trying to figure out how I can use the data that we have access to and AI to predict where the fires are going to happen or where the conditions are a little bit worse, and have basically a heat map of where the higher fire danger is. So that's something I'm currently working on, and at 10:30 I have another meeting with a different company, so hopefully I'll make it to that at that time. Looking at the county as a whole, or taking AI into pieces, Boulder County has the ability to divide kind of the plains from the higher elevations by Highway 7, which is a pretty good marker. Not Highway 7, I can't remember which highway it is, but there's a highway there that they have. Larimer County, we don't have anything that bisects the plains from the hills. 287 kind of, but if you live on one side of 287, you can have a fire if you live on the other side. So it gets a little confusing as it gets closer to Wyoming. So we've always been reluctant, because when we go into restrictions, we really try and make it as easy for the public as we can, and also the fire departments and the law enforcement officers that are out there enforcing the fire ban or fire restrictions. So with the new sheriff, that wasn't something that we've had a discussion about. He asked the same question this morning, so obviously I need to sit down with Sheriff Fayen and have that discussion about, if we could break it into sections, what would that look like? I definitely want his input and him to kind of guide us on what he thinks on that. So I apologize, I haven't had that opportunity to sit down and talk with him about that, but he mentioned it this morning as well, so obviously that's something on his mind. So yes, it's something we can reevaluate, because you are correct, the conditions obviously are different across the county.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful answer. And I just don't want, again, just thank you for your expertise, and you're so diligent and such a your tireless efforts in this area. I just want to say my gratitude and thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have one question, sir, and that is, how do we proactively inform the public that we're on top of all this? Because it seems like we'll hear from certain, folks that we represent, and they're saying, is the county doing anything about this? We're in D2 drought conditions. So I'm curious, do we put this information on the website? How do we inform folks that, we have a methodology, we have indices, so they can feel reassured that we're not being reactive, but we're being as proactive as we humanly can?
No, and I appreciate you bringing that up, and that's one of those things we struggle with. I know you all get emails and questions about why we are or why we are not in fire restrictions, and I also answer those phone calls, and because they get forwarded to my phone, and I get those emails, and that's something that me and the sheriff's office, we need to do better at, and that's one of the things I'm working on, is to update our website to talk about the indices that we look at, and actually have a live updated, constantly updating where we're at in the conditions and what they look like, to be transparent, and so that individuals can go on there and look and see what the conditions are. It won't have everything in here is accessible through the internet, but you kind of have to go to different websites to find it. But my plan is to create a website where community members can go and see what the conditions are and what we're looking at, to determine and provide you with the information to determine whether we go in or whether we do not go into restrictions.
Thank you, Justin. That's very helpful. And do you have a sense of when this website might be operational? This year, or perhaps next?
Yeah, it should be this year.
Okay.
That's something I'm working on pretty hard right now, trying to get implemented this year.
I think that's a great idea, as much of a real-time website to inform people. One other suggestion I would offer for your consideration, and that is, even like with this presentation, I don't know if it makes sense to have your public information officer perhaps work with our folks to, put out a press release that, this is what we've discerned. I mean, some way to, let people know that we're paying attention to this, because I don't think thousands of people are listening to this discussion right now. And so if there's a way to get the word out, perhaps through some kind of a press release, I would suggest, I offer that maybe you all could think about that.
No, that's a great point, and
I don't
I can work with the county PIO's office and our public information officer with the sheriff's office, and we can definitely put together a press release. I know Kate and Allie from our end are proactive and really try and get our messages out there, and I think that'd be a great message that we can deliver to the public, because I agree that well, I would like to think 1,000 people are maybe watching me. They're probably not. So.
Yeah, same here. And again, to perhaps allay any concerns or fears that we're not paying attention to this, and even after today, I mean, I don't think it would be a lot of brain damage to, send out a press release. We've looked at the conditions, the indices, and all of that, and we want to assure the public that we're monitoring things as carefully. We have people on the ground ready should anything occur.
That's a great point, and we'll definitely work together to make sure we get a message out to the public.
Thank you, sir. Anything else, colleagues, or Brenda, is there something that we may have missed that you'll pick up on?
I think the only thing, Justin, you said you had a recommendation, and you wanted to take comments first. Do you have a recommendation for today, or is this more of an update?
Nope, I did have a recommendation. It is to hold off on going into restrictions at this time. I'm happy to come back again next Tuesday and provide another update, because so here's the two things that I base those on. One is the next week's weather. We're supposed to have quite a few thunderstorms with a little bit of moisture that will kind of maintain where we're at and even lower it a little bit. And I also don't want to implement restrictions and then pull them back off. We don't like to, the sheriff's office, again, doesn't want to confuse the public, the fire departments, or those that are enforcing the restrictions. And so we don't like to put them on and then pull them back off because we get a little bit of rain. And we also don't want the public to quit listening to us because it's raining and we tell them that they can't have a fire. So there's a balance there, and I get it, but we don't quite meet restriction criteria while we're on the edge. Our suggestion is to wait until next week, and again, I'm happy to come back and provide an update at that time, but that's just the sheriff's office recommendation, and I'm looking to you all to let me know how you would like to proceed.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, Justin, we rely on your expertise and stuff, but I just, working in this space and I'm on the subcommittee for the Fire Commission for the state and all that, I want the public to hear that just because we put in fire restrictions and it rains doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean the danger's down. And when this area, so my question is, in this area of mega fires, and the scale and scope of the risks that we're at right now across the state, and even in our county, does that factor in all into your calculations, your analysis, that we wait to a certain point where we might, put ourselves at risk we have a lot of tourists. We have 4.5 million people come into this county for Rocky Mountain National Park alone. And I've been I hike up in those woods and things, and there's a lot of ATVs and vehicles with sparks and things. And I know this is a very sweet spot thing, but when we're in these conditions with adaptive vapor, I'm going to use some technical things, vapor pressure deficit, adaptive silviculture conditions, where we have climate change impacting the ground and the soil and all these things with our forests, and just even how the needles in the trees can't get the moisture out of the air, and it makes them more not thriving, but also more susceptible to fire. I'm not questioning, but I'm just knowing it makes me I'm getting a little twitchy and nervous about when we look at this, because I hate to see another Cameron Peak. My goal is we never see a mega fire like that here in Larimer County, but I know there's not some things we can't control, but you know what I'm saying. I still have visions of that, and so I'm just curious about that. And I don't want you to miss your meeting, but I just for the public to hear this as well.
No, and that's a great point again, and I appreciate the comments, and we take the information I provided you is just kind of a snapshot of all the data that I look at. The planning levels, which are in the very first page there, the FTC PL is the Fort Collins planning level. The RMCC PL is the Rocky Mountain Coordination Center planning level. So Fort Collins Interagency Dispatch goes all the way basically from Kansas border to I-70, basically, and then all the way over to Utah border. So that's a FTC area. Planning levels 2, it goes from 1 to 5. 5 is the highest it gets. That means that we're really busy and there's very limited resources. Right now we're in a planning level 2, RMAC, RMCC, RMAC. That is the region, so South Dakota, Wyoming, and Colorado. Planning level is a 2, so there are quite a few resources and very little fire activity in Colorado. There were 7 initial attack fires in Colorado yesterday, which is actually really low with 239 acres, which isn't that significant. We will have fires pretty much year-round in Colorado, and yes, all those factors definitely contribute to fire, but there are several different data sets and resources. The country, the planning level for the nation right now is planning level 4, so yeah, it's starting to get busy in California, Oregon. Alaska was busy, but they got a significant amount of rain. The biggest thing that I'm looking at right now is we have a lot of resources available, and with the monsoonal moisture potential to be more than what they had previously predicted, those are kind of why I'm saying hold off until next week. But I definitely understand what you're saying, Commissioner, and every time we don't go into restrictions, it's one of those things that we talk about a lot at the Sheriff's Office, so it's not something that we take lightly. We put a lot of thought into it, but we also want to follow state statute and make sure that we provide competent evidence before we go in. So,
Thank you for your thoughtful answer, and I know you're very, very diligent. I know you guys are just as concerned, and thank you. Please thank Sheriff Fan for his questions as well, and I appreciate that answer because, it's just starting to get to that sweet point. And I want to thank you for your expertise and your team and all the work that you guys do year round. So thank you.
thank you.
So before we sign off on this topic, question to my commissioner colleagues: do you want our Emergency Services Director to come back in a week and give us an update?
I think that would be helpful if that works for you, for your schedule. I just think that, with the kind of conditions changing, so right now it's just a weird time. So if you're able to do that, I think that would be great. But I do appreciate you really weighing all this evidence, and there's a lot to weigh here, and really following state statute. And, it's not an exact science, but it's certainly very, very data-driven. And so, we know that there are fires that can pop up even with the restrictions in, and so a cigarette butt out the window is a good example of something, or a lightning strike or something like that could happen. So, I'm fine to stay where we're at, but I think an update in a week would be great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. One final thought for your consideration with this idea of perhaps a press release. You may want to also think about who makes the call on whether we do fire restrictions or some other recommendation. I know that you have tremendous experience and your expertise, and I don't know if that's. I somehow suspect it's a collective decision. You consult with some of your colleagues here, you consult with the sheriff, but that might also be helpful, is to explain to folks it's not just one individual, even though you have all that darn expertise, that's making that decision. Something to consider.
No, those are all great points, and we'll
Yeah.
definitely work with the press release to make sure that we provide as much detail and information as we can.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. Thank you, colleagues, and I believe we can move on. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You as
Yep.
well.
So I think we now move on to county manager update, and I actually need to step away, so you're in charge.
Thank you, Commissioners. I will focus on one thing that we did last week that was, I think, particularly exciting and does demonstrate what Larimer County values. We have an annual Innovation Award program. This year, there were nearly 20 nominations or applications submitted for that. Our Guiding Principles champions reviewed those and narrowed down to 3 finalists that the Strategic Leadership Committee were able to see presentations from last week. And so it is really exciting to see the kind of things that employees are submitting. This is an employee award. It is not a management award. It is not a leadership award. It really is about seeing something and making an innovative recommendation. So we talked to 3 groups. The winner of the award is the Youth Crisis Program Team Co-Responder Unit at Thompson School District. That is a partnership between the school district, the sheriff's office, and Summit Stone Health Partners. It is on the ground, real-time response to the mental health and substance use needs of our youth in our community in that school district. And the differences that they talked about making were outstanding. You'll hear those stories whenever we do the award ceremony in September. There'll be a video produced around it, so it'll be online. But that is one of the, I think, real exciting things that has been done. Deputy Brendan Solano was a school resource officer. He was kind of a natural to take this on, and you can see how passionate he is about this work. So I can't wait for you to meet him and hear from him. The 2 runners-up were also outstanding. One of them they called the Dream On program. It's mattress recycling, which is a solid waste effort that a team put together. They diverted 13,000 mattresses in 2022. That's 2.5 miles high and the weight of about 50 elephants, just to put it in perspective. That is material that did not go into the landfill. And so this program is really near and dear to their hearts. It provides not only capacity at the landfill, but also recycles all of that material using a company in Denver that hires folks who have been convicted felons who can't find other work. It provides a resume building experience for them, and it is a really great working environment. So that's a great partnership as well. And then finally, the Community Justice Alternatives Department put together a group of employees called Empower. Employees making positive and objective work environment recommendations. That's what Empower stands for. It's 15 members of their staff who take suggestions from their fellow staff members. They evaluate those, they run them up through the leadership team, and then they make sure that those things that they can do are implemented or implemented to the extent they can. And it's made a real difference just in connecting people in that department, but also in making incremental improvements in how they do work. So I want to congratulate all of those folks. All the presentations were remarkable. The people are passionate about what they do to serve our community members in the various ways that they do, and to support each other in their good work. So congratulations. September 13th will be the award ceremony, and there'll be much more about this at that time. But that is my big highlight for the week.
Thank you, Lorinda. Commissioner, any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair Pro Tem. First time hearing this, I'm super excited. Of course, I'm a big fan of the co-responder, especially the co-responder program. And Deputy Solano is just phenomenal, and he's come up and done some of my community conversations. So I'm assuming also Sergeant Cook will be there and part of this, because, you know, he's kind of overseeing all of that and been so involved with that. And he's on the national board for the co-responder programs, and I know he's been kind of a champion, but I just can't say enough about that program and our partnership with the clinicians. I think that's with Summit Stone Health Partners. Also, I believe the school district is now going from 1 team to 3 teams because it has been so impactful. So I'm just curious about, I guess my question is Sergeant Cook, and the other 2 programs are phenomenal as well. I think I'm just so glad we have some runner-up, and I'm kudos to the team that had to pick. I can't imagine how hard that was, but that's my question is about Sergeant Cook and other things.
So Sergeant Cook actually nominated this idea as the award, and so he is, I'm sure, will be present and is behind the scenes and is the program's biggest cheerleader. I understand from Deputy Solano that a second team is being added in Thompson School District. In fact, it's being assembled right now, and the 2 teams are working together so that they can be more involved and stay a little longer on a scene rather than handing it off to a school counselor. So these are great resources for Thompson. The outcomes have been amazing. I don't want to steal all their thunder, but it was really exciting and heartwarming to hear. It's funny when you do these sort of interviews and you hear these presentations, they're all amazing, and it's really a very difficult decision. But the idea that the three partners are supporting our youth and our community in some of the most vulnerable ways was really, I think, the tipping point for that particular one to win the grand prize.
Why am I not surprised that Sergeant Cook was the nominator? So that kind of totally fits his public servant heart. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. I can't tell you how excited I am. So thank you.
I'll check in with you later about the item that you brought up. I think now we can move on. So thank you, Lorinda. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Commissioner, for stepping in there. Commissioner activity reports. Why don't we begin with Commissioner Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few things from me. I wanted to let folks know that on Tuesday, last Tuesday, I went up to Estes Park with Extension staff. So that was the Director of Extension, Carrie Weiner, and Krista and Allison. And the idea is sort of we're taking the show on the road for Extension. We are going to small and big communities across the county, but mostly focused on smaller communities and rural communities to sort of explain the work that Extension does. And so I think that we often say that Extension is the biggest kept secret, and we really don't want it to be a secret because of the great programs that they provide. We talked about the food safety kind of programming, the Family Leadership Training Institute, which is around people who have been, potentially marginalized communities to try to get them to engage with local government. Some of the mental health service programs that they're working on with youth in Extension. A program that Allison created called Evergreen Elders, there was a lot of interest in that program around going to maybe nursing facilities and memory care facilities and helping people learn about horticulture and planting, and she brings activities. Talked about the advanced care planning that's done through Extension, radon services, 4-H. So there are tons of programs that are offered by Extension, and it was great to sort of lay that out for the Estes Park Town Council. They had a lot of questions. They were very excited to bring some of those programs up to Estes Park. They felt like they fit in with a lot of existing programs that they have, and so they mentioned several places where they felt like we could form a partnership with them. So I think it was very well received, and it was a great presentation. Sounds like we'll be in Timnath next week. I can't remember the exact schedule, but we are trying to go out, like I said, and make sure that people understand these services and see how we really can help them bring those services to their communities as well. So that was a really fun night. Then I attended the National Association of Counties conferences for most of last week and until yesterday. Went to presentations around transportation, workforce, childcare, housing, met with the Share Our Strength group to talk about food insecurity, especially amongst children. And then very happy that I received a appointment from the president of NACO to be vice chair of the transportation committee. So that was good news for me, and I think good news for our community. Hopefully, I will be able to affect some policy changes around transportation at the federal level. Certainly, trying to get more direct funding to counties with regard to transportation, because I've said this before, but counties operate 44% of roads across the country, more than any other governmental entity, and we've only received 8% of the bipartisan infrastructure law dollars, and so really trying to flip that and make sure that we're getting our fair share of dollars, and we know we have a lot of transportation needs in our community. And then finally, I just wanted to plug something for next week. I am having a mock admin matters meeting, so it's a listening session basically, but we're just going to go through what it's like in the hearing room to have to be at administrative matters meeting to have people practice kind of coming up to the podium to see what it's like kind of sort of behind the scenes, to understand, the cadence of the meetings and how they can participate. We're going to have a lot of members from Family Leadership Training Institute coming. It's going to be a language justice program, so there will be translation. And really just trying to get people comfortable with engaging with local government. So I'm really excited about that. Thankful for Jordan for helping me figure that out. It is an idea that I copied from another community, but it seemed like a fun way to, sometimes it's intimidating for people to come up and talk to us. We're like sitting at a higher level, and that may be the first time people have spoken in public before. So I'm hopeful that a lot of people will come, and everyone is welcome, and certainly we'll see how it goes, and would love to do that maybe annually to really get people comfortable with engaging with local government. So that is it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to share a little bit of my meeting. We had a rodeo board meeting let me go back up a little bit. Last week I traveled up to Station 8 for the Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, and we traveled up to meet the interns and the seasonal crew that the Larimer, our board, supported with a grant to pay for their equipment and for their interns, their paid interns for the summer. And this is an opportunity for students in the Warner College, and it's a partnership between CSU, Colorado State Forest Service, Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, I think also Front Range is involved, and the county, basically, as we are supporting this workforce development opportunity for paid internships. And so we went up to Station 8 where they're based out of, and I've been fortunate when I drive back and forth with my meetings in Estes Park, but also when my hiking, you see them out there doing PT or physical training with the fire crews, and it's a chance for them, the interns, to see what it's like to do GIS training, strategic mapping, strategic planning, actually get out and do chainsaw work and boots on the ground and learn what it's like to be wildfire mitigation, but wildfire firefighters, but also forestry and other things. And so it's an intern for this summer. It's going very well. It was featured in the paper. I know it was online. I'm not sure it was has been published yet, but really neat group, and certainly interesting stories to share about that program, because they're able to go out to older adults and do a wildfire assessment for around the home, and then they come out and do the mitigation, and then they take it to a spot where they use the air curtain burner and turn that slash within less than 2 weeks into biochar or something. So it's really an innovative, unique program that we're doing here in Larimer County, and I don't know if other groups are moving that quickly to get biomass taken care of. So someone wanted to share and highlight. Then we had the rodeo board meeting, which I attend virtually, and we're getting close to having all of the activities. It should be a really interesting and well thought out rodeo. We'll have the Rodeo 101 again up on the Jumbotron, sharing information about what to look for certain events, and I look forward to it. I want to thank the rodeo board for their tireless efforts. There's a lot of details go into that whole rodeo. Is a lot of volunteer work with a lot of technical details, and again, congratulations to them on their 75th anniversary for winning Mid-Size Rodeo of the Year last year. We also I represent the board, I chair the Loveland Urban Renewal Authority Board. We had a very robust meeting that was supposed to be an hour and a half and went for 4.5 hours. And so I'm sure you want to learn more about it. You can read about it in the paper. It was an interesting meeting, and I want to go into too many details. It was also followed up with an executive session that I can't speak about, but it certainly is going to be continued with our next meeting and starting in August. And then I was really excited to attend the pollinator preview for Nectary for the Poudre Libraries with a grant from the Nature in the Park or Nature in the City grant, the pollinator garden and sensory garden that is crossed kind of very near the Old Town Library, and attend with Diane LaPierre, the director of Poudre Libraries, and others, and to meet the young woman the youth that named it the Nectary, and see all the flowers, and it was well done. And it was really relaxing to be there with the fountain and the chimes and the plants, and it was just well done, and I appreciate that. Of course, monthly, besides my Regional 2 opioid abatement meeting, I attend monthly the Regional opioid abatement learning forums and discussions with Attorney General's office. And certainly we learn from other across regions how they're doing it. And we also get guidance from the national guidance along with the state guidance, which is changing for the next cycle 2. So it also puts guardrails and rules in place for the Region 2 and how we have to operate with how they are giving us guidance. So that is changing also. So I want to put that in perspective of how we also, as a Region 2, even though we have had a good couple of years getting money out the door, some of the rules and guidance are changing. And so I want to be very, very specific about that. And that was an important meeting. Then I had took a very large group of folks in the state, federal, nonprofit, and community groups and volunteer fire departments. We all met to celebrate the U.S. Forest Service Wildfire Defense Grant and all the other grants out. It's getting close to being $15 million that came into Larimer County for wildfire mitigation and work. And so we just took a moment to gather and celebrate, and it was well received. We had dozens of folks there, and it was great for everyone just to kind of hang out and celebrate and take a moment to appreciate the work, because that hasn't had that kind of amount of money. That may sound like a lot of money, but with a $4 billion price tag on the mitigation work that we need to do in the state, it's just a drop in the bucket. So I just want to be very, very specific about that, because this is sometimes what keeps me up at night. Also on Friday, I had a chance to meet with the Colorado Agricultural Commissioner Greenberg, and we had some great discussions about agrivoltaics, some of our biomass work, and also our discussions about partnering with other groups and quasi-judicial government agencies across this county, and that was a very productive and great meeting. And then I'll just share that I've had some meetings with the fire chief, the state forester, and some other folks the last few weeks, and there's just a lot happening in the space of wildfire and forest health and mitigation, and that's all I have to share. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and also just been touring around some community events just as a community member, but I've been out and about, but nothing really formal as a commissioner. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll share a couple of things. I think I'll do it in reverse chronological order. So yesterday, I visited a 9-year-old who has a 4-H project. Will be participating in the Junior Livestock event coming up on August 7th, and 2 sheep. And it was a really nice visit to their home. She has a 7-year-old brother, Henry, and her name is Elena, and we just had a wonderful time. And they showed me around their little 23-acre little homestead there. And they actually have a miniature donkey, so I was pretty excited about that. And they even brought out a huge carrot that they purchased from Native Hill Farm, their farm stand, to feed the donkey. So I was terribly excited. And the kids were just wonderful and very animated, very excited. They showed me every little inch of even the toads that were down in the window well of their basement window. So that was great. And the junior livestock will be on August 7th, and encourage folks to participate in however they can. On Sunday, so that was yesterday. Sunday, I actually attended the Nueva Vida soccer field celebration fiesta, And once again, I had a lot of fun. It was a great event. The weather was a bit fickle, but thanks to the work of Ricardo Perez, Office of Emergency Management, our public health folks, and others, it was a wonderful celebration. And they had goalposts and that they had gotten there. They even had Colorado Rapids man, this rather tall soccer-like creature or something. I'm not sure, but that was just tremendously. It was a good celebration. I can't say that enough. And what the two highlights for me, besides being able to scrimmage with the kids and listen and come in from the lightning and everything else with everybody else. At one point, I'm kind of a sap for this, but one of the little girls that I know from before, she came up to me kind of shy and had her little bag of popcorn and kind of held it out and offered me some popcorn. I thought that was nice. And then before I left them, the firefighters were there as well, so that was great. And they were out scrimmaging and playing, and they had steel-toed boots, so they had a bit of an advantage kicking the ball. But as I was leaving, there was a little boy that I had interacted with, and he kind of looked at me, and his mom was right there, and he gave me a hug, so that was great. Okay, enough of that. And then, let's see. Yes, on Thursday and Friday, I was in Garfield County. We had our State Board of Human Services meeting, and one of the more critical rules that we passed that require more update is having to do with an issue that is regarding falsification of child welfare records, and so we have taken some action there on July 10th, Wednesday. In the morning, I attended the Black Hollow Solar Farm groundbreaking ceremony out near Severance. Pretty exciting. 257 megawatts, Platte River Power Authority. It will power approximately 36,000 homes. And so that was a big deal. That was a lot of fun. Various folks were there. We had our Ag Advisory Board meeting, thanks to Matt and other folks that participate. One of the takeaways from the Ag Advisory Board meeting is the great work that Extension is doing, and our new Extension Services person who's focusing a lot on ag issues. She was sharing the results of an ag survey that they did. A lot of good information there that's very helpful for folks to consider. And then, I did attend the library Nectary event, and it's a nice space for the public. I think finally, July 9th, Tuesday night, Environmental and Science Advisory Board, we had an update on the Water Master Plan. We also had an update on the Water Master Plan at Ag Advisory. But we also discussed the memo that the committee worked on behalf of the commissioners regarding the Platte River Power Authority IRP Integrated Resource Plan, and we'll be discussing that a little bit this afternoon. That's all I have to report. Thank you for listening. We can now move on to legal matters. Let's see, we are not expected to make a decision. Therefore, after the proper motion, we'll move into executive session. We will not be returning, which means that Cassidy is relieved from duty once we go into executive session, and I think Heather as well. So with that, I forget, let's see, whose turn is it? You guys, Commissioner, would you offer the motion, please? I forgot.
I move that the Board of Commissioners for Larimer County move into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402 4B, conferences with an attorney for the purposes of receiving legal advice about enforcement actions regarding Prospect Energy at the ECMC regarding flaring of oil and gas cooperative agreements related to oil and gas matters, and a state-level plugging and abandoning requests and settlement of outstanding issues.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's indeed a proper motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 3-0. We'll now go into executive session. No decision is expected. We thank you all for participating, and we wish you a good day, a pleasant day.